Greetings, everybody. Kay, are you there as well? You ready?
Yeah, I am.
So it is such a privilege to be joining you today and to share concepts of giving that have been very fundamental in my life and that of many that I have known over the last 4 decades. And we think that this is something that would be a good first point of sharing with our friends in the Chinese Business Association. Thank you for this privilege to do so. And we're going to be using a PowerPoint, and the context is one of legacy. And so I want to start with 2 scriptures to share as we think about legacy. Kay, you tell me if I've said enough.
OK， 好，非常荣幸借这个机会能够跟线上的各位朋友来分享今天这个有关捐赠的主题。那这个话题实际上对我自己个人在过去的40年当中有很深的影响。那么我们今天从捐赠的这个作为一个起点开始讨论后面的话题。我准备了一些 PPT， 也会从家族传承的这个角度作为一个起点。
And so when we think about legacy, we often think about what is being shared, what is its value for those whom it is being transferred to. And Jesus addressed that as well.
当我们谈及传承这个话题的时候，我们会想到一种分享，一个跟价值有关的一个话题。那么我们要把这个价值传递给谁？耶稣基督他也谈到了这个主题。
He spoke about it in Luke chapter 12 when he encountered someone who asked him to tell his brother to share the inheritance.
主耶稣基督在路加福音的第12章，当这个弟兄来问到这个话题的时候，他是这样回答的。
Jesus said, "One's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions."
耶稣基督说，一个人的生命不在乎家道的丰富。
He shared a parable.
他分享了一个比喻，说
The land of a rich man produced plentifully, and he said, "What shall I do? I have nowhere to store my crops."
有一个人他的田产很丰富，他说我大概没有更多余的地方来储存我这些丰富的财物。
So he said, "I know what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store all of my grain and my goods."
他说我要把我的谷仓给拆了，建一个更大的，这样来储存我更多的这样一些丰收的果实。
And I will say to my soul, "Soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, and be merry."
我就会对我的灵魂说，灵魂啊，你好好的吃喝享受吧，这一切都够了，可以供你很多年的需用。
God said to him, "Fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things you prepared for yourself, whose will they be?"
上帝对这个人说，你这个无知的人呐，今天就要收取你的灵魂，你所要创造的要归谁呢？
And Jesus then said, "So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God."
耶稣基督就说，那些在物质上丰富的，而在神里面贫穷的，也要如此。
And so we see that Jesus is encouraging us to be rich toward God when it comes to the thought of legacy. Think of God.
所以耶稣基督在讲到传承的时候也是这样，希望我们在上帝面前是富裕的。
Paul was speaking in a similar way to his student Timothy in the first letter to Timothy, chapter 6.
使徒保罗在给提摩太也谈到了这个话题，是在提摩太前书的第一章，提摩太前书的第6章也谈到这个话题。
Paul was speaking about how to treat people, and he said to Timothy, "As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy."
使徒保罗在嘱咐提摩太的时候，他这样讲：不要把我们的心肠放在那些无定的钱财上面，而是那些想要发财的人就会陷入在许多的迷惑和落在这些网罗和无知有害的私欲当中。
Paul said about the rich, they are to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and ready to share.
他在谈到富裕的时候，他是说要行善，在好事上富足，甘心施舍，乐意供给人。
Here's the important point. He says, as a result, they will be storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of life that is truly life.
对。所以他说，我们这样做的时候，就是在为自己积成美好的根基，预备将来，来持定那真正永恒的生命。
So, brothers and sisters, I think as a thought to share at the outset of this discussion is that our Lord enjoins us, encourages us to share with others.
所以我们要记得，我们的主是这样的，愿意我们能够乐意分享，乐意和其他人一起来分享这些的我们生命当中的丰盛。
And he also points our perspective toward heaven. He says, this fashion, when you give, you're storing up a good foundation for the life that is truly life, the long tomorrow.
他更是讲到了这样一种天国的一个观念，那就是我们是为自己来预备美好未来的呢，真正的一个根基，就是永恒的生命，真正的生命。
And so with that, Kay, I want to start this video, and I think is it on the screen now, or this slide deck?
那我们来看一下这个视频上面的这个 PPT。
Okay. Are we okay to continue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So we're going to talk about legacy in the context of giving charitably. And I'm going to share my experience over the last 40 years of encouraging people to give away significant value that God has given to them.
那我呢就跟大家分享，在我过去40年的职业生涯当中，是如何来建议别人如何来给予，并且是很慷慨的来给予，进行捐赠。
I realized early on that it makes a lot of sense to speak with people about giving assets other than cash. And the question is, why is that?
所以我们 excuse me, your first part, please.
Yes. I encourage people to give assets other than cash.
我鼓励大家进行非现金类的资产类的捐赠，而并非是拿出很多的现金资产进行捐赠。
One of the reasons for that is because cash is a very small part of most people's balance sheet.
因为在我们的这个财务报表当中，我们个人的资产表当中，实际上现金是占非常有限的一部分。
This is particularly true of those to whom God has given much.
这并非说是上帝没有给我们太多。
You see in this circle on the left how the balance sheet or the pie graph of one's wealth shows about 10% or it could be 20% of it is cash. The rest is other assets.
我们从左边的这个饼图里面可以看到，现金资产占到我们财富收入的，也就是10%到20%的比例，其他的部分是以非现金资产的形态存在。
This pie graph over here on the right represents what people give.
右边这个表呢，来说明大家是如何进行捐赠的这个比例。
Here we see that most of what people give in the United States anyway, by a long shot, is cash. Very little is non-cash.
从右边这个图我们看到，实际上在北美，大家以现金资产进行捐赠的是非常少的部分，而大部分是以非现金资产捐赠的。
So you can see when it comes to giving, people are turning to a very small portion of their balance sheet in order to give.
So what's your logic, Greg?
So it is a small pond that they are giving out of. In other words, people are not giving from the majority of what they own, but from a small amount. They're giving.
所以大家给出的实际上是很小的一个部分，因为现金资产占的比重太低。
Now, what can we observe with this?
我们从这所能看到的 ，OK， 我们从这所能看到的是这样一个结论。
All the charities and all individuals who give charitably tend to use cash. It's a very small portion of what they have to give.
所以大家来进行慈善捐赠的时候，用拿现金的部分来给予的话，总是非常非常有限的。
One other observation is that we know that all of us will eventually give everything away.
那么这件事情比较吊诡的是，实际上到最后的时候，我们都要给出去。
So we ask the question, why are not more people giving more of what they have when cash is so important for many other needs? Food, clothing, shelter, etc.
那我们现在就要问这个问题：既然现金对我们这么重要，我们要吃、要住、要用，而现金要给出去的部分又极其的有限，那么我们应该来怎么处理这个捐赠的问题呢？
We have found that as you talk to people about giving non-cash, you find there can be very good reasons in different situations for them to do so.
实际上我们发现用非现金类的资产来进行捐赠的时候，可以达到非常奇妙的果效。
Let's take a look at what some of those opportunities are.
那我们来看一下有哪些的情形。
We call this the asset-based giving opportunity.
我们称之为基于资产的捐赠机会或者捐赠契机。
Assets that are often in balance sheets or wealth of people include publicly traded securities, real estate, partnership interests, limited liability companies, and often other types of private equity investments.
在我们的财务报表当中，我们看到以非现金形式存在的这样一些资产，包括上市公司的股票和房地产合伙当中的就是商业企业商业部分的一些利益，包括合伙权益、有限公司持股和私募股权投资等等。
The concept of an iceberg comes to mind. We know that about 10% of an iceberg is visible. This is like the cash. But the bulk of the iceberg is below the water, and it is a large feature that in our illustration is the non-cash opportunity.
如果我们把这个资产的形态来比作冰山的话，那我们能看到冰山实际上它露出水面的部分只有10%，它大部分的体积都是在水下，占到90%。那同样在我们的资产的财富形态当中也是这样的，我们持有现金也只占到所有资产的10%，那大部分的都是以其他方式存在的。
I want to share an example of how being able to give non-cash assets creates an opportunity for people to do more with their cash.
那我想跟大家介绍的是，我们如果用冰山下面90%的这部分的非现金资产进行捐赠的时候，会达到如何奇妙的果效。
We call this the opportunity to give more, and it is based on the concept of a tithe.
那我们的一个假设就是说，我们实际上是可以给予的更多。那么这个假设的前提就是我们基督徒的十一奉献。
I'm going to share with you how one can go from tithing in cash their income in a given year and actually give up to 50% of their total adjusted gross income in a year by using non-cash gift.
就是作为基督徒的十一奉献，是从我们的这个 AGI 当中的10%，但实际上我们是可以给到50%，中间可以参与一些非现金类资产的捐赠。我来详细解释。
We have found that serious Christians who desire to return to the Lord what He's given to them will typically tithe.
那作为一个很认真的、生命严谨的基督徒，他们会愿意把上帝给他们的那个收入当中的10%的部分拿出来，奉献回去。
Sometimes they say, I would love to give more than my tithe, but I need cash for various cash flow needs in my business, pay taxes, for the family.
他们会说，我爱神，也愿意给出超出10%的部分，但实际上现金对于我来讲呢，也是相当的重要。比如说，我们有生意上的需要，也还要付税，也还会有供养家庭。
Often these families have significant non-cash assets, and they're eventually going to give those away.
那实际上这个家庭呢也有很多的非现金资产，而最终呢这些都要给出去。
If they plan to eventually give away to charity, we suggest to them what would happen if you gave some of your non-cash asset in the current year.
与其说是到最后，最末后。你把所有的财产都捐赠给慈善机构，你不如现在呢就给出去一部分。
What if you can do so in a manner that does not affect your control or your lifestyle or your capital needs?
那实际上这个对你的现金和你资本的影响是没有的。
So they give a bit of property or an interest in a company that allows them to take a 30% deduction of their income.
如果把这个不动产或者是商业利益当中的30%的部分能够给出去的话，那实际上对你的这个现金收入是没有什么影响的。
What they are doing is simply giving away a little bit of their net worth now in a manner that allows them to give more in a current year and claim a deduction of 30% of their income.
实际上这样做的时候，对他的这个净收入没有影响，但是呢，可以达到抵税30%的这样一个果效。
As a result, with only 10% cash giving, they have gone from 10% of their income giving to 40%. 10% plus 30%, 40% total of their cash giving. And it did not cost them any more cash.
那最后的这个捐赠的形态就是这样，10%的现金和30%的其他的非现金资产，最后能够给出去的是能够达到40%，而能够对于你的收入能够有很好的一个抵税的结果。
This total giving saves up to 12% of their adjusted gross income in taxes. They now have more money in their pocket than they did when they only gave 10%.
如果是这样来算的话，实际上它能够对于调整以后的个人收入的 AGI 的部分能够省出12%。那省出来的这个12%，实际上无形当中又可以加大了你继续捐赠的力度。
To get to 50% giving, they simply take some of what the government gives them back in tax savings and give that to their charitable fund. So they have 10% original cash giving, and they take tax savings to make the other 10% cash gifts to create a total of 50% giving on their income, all based on the non-cash gift.
那实际上就是把这个12%节税回来的这个比例当中的10%，其实可以加到这个进一步的捐赠当中，使得最终的这个捐赠可以达到这个年收入的50%，这就是这样算出来的。这个中间的理由就是搭了这个30%的非现金的捐赠。
We have many people who do this each year in order to maximize what they intend to give.
很多人就是这样来进行捐赠，使得最终的这个捐赠额是能够被放大。
Now, when you think about the benefits of charitable giving, we typically think just about the deduction that the giver receives.
当我们来谈到这个慈善捐赠的时候，基本上我们都会想它能够抵多少税。
When you're giving non-cash assets, there's a couple other significant advantages. One is that you typically do not have to pay tax, or the charity does not, on the income that it receives from the asset.
所以当我们来算这个节税的时候，实际上在进行捐赠的时候，作为收入方，就是接受捐赠的一方，它是免税的。那作为我们给予的一方，也能够从收入当中来进行，就是不作为，就是可以算作税的那一部分的收入。
Also, when the asset is eventually sold, usually the tax is not paid. the charity is not subject to tax on the gain of the sale of that asset.
那至终当慈善机构处置那部分资产变现的时候，所增加的那一部分的资本利得也是免税的。
I would like to share 5 areas where this is significant opportunity for believers. Again, thinking of the concept of the iceberg with the cash on top and all of the asset value underneath.
那么我从5个方面来谈，来触发捐赠的这5个因素，仍然是用冰山的这样一个图表来做解释。
This is the key to what I wanted to share with you today, technically.
从技术的角度讲，专业的角度讲，这是我跟大家今天分享最重要的部分。
When believers are going to sell real estate and incur significant taxation because of the increased value of that real estate, or if they're going to sell business interest and likewise have increased value that is taxable, you have a wonderful opportunity to give interest in those assets and minimize taxation.
当信徒在出售房产的时候，或者出售商业当中的股权权益的时候，都会产生非常大的一个增值，而这部分的增值是作为一个应税收入的。
Also, when one finds that their annual income well exceeds their lifestyle. For example, they make $500,000 or $1 million in a given year, but their lifestyle is 150 or 200 or 250,000. They have income well exceeding lifestyle.
我们比如说，有的人呢，他一年的实际上的生活收入是10万美金或者是20万美金，但实际上当年的收入可能远超过这部分的，比如说可以达到50万美金，那这个差额的部分就比较大。
As a fourth trigger, many people desire to share with the church or with other ministries or organizations at their death. Most of those, go ahead.
很多的人都是希望在他们身故之前，把自己的这些的资产捐赠给教会啊，或者说是施工组织。
Most of those people wait until they die to do so.
很多的人都是等着有快不行的时候再做这个事情的安排。
In many of these situations, it is possible for people to give value during life that will be utilized at the end of their lives and obtain tax benefits that allow them to give more during life.
实际上是不需要等到快到那一天的时候再做这种安排，可以在我们在世的时候就做好这样的安排，使得在今生可以享受更多的从税收筹划方面的一些的好处。
And finally, in the United States, people with very large estates will find that that estate is taxed at their death.
那在美国，在一个人过世的时候，他身后的资产也都会作为遗产税的应税资产。
That creates great opportunity to plan additional gifts during life that will minimize that taxation at the end of life.
所以说，这部分的遗产税是需要在生前的时候要尽早规划的，这样使得遗产税的税那部分能够降到最低。
Let's briefly look at a few examples.
我们来看一下这个例子。
This is about real estate, where we find that a gift of real estate, 10%, is being made into a charitable fund at the National Christian Foundation. We call that a giving fund.
我们以 NCF 来举例，把这个不动产当中的10%来捐赠给这个 NCF 下面的这个捐赠者基金，我们叫 Giving Fund。
And in this example, the benefits are significant.
从这个结构当中，大家能够看到这个好处是非常非常显著的。
We find that the giver is able to obtain a significant income tax deduction and thereby saves, in this example, $500,000 in taxes.
用这个例子来看的话，那作为捐赠的这个人，他能享受到的这个税收的好处可以达到50多万美金。
Here, eventually, often soon, the gifted portion is sold tax-free. This allows for savings of hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital gains taxes.
那捐赠的那部分的资产在出售的时候，由于免资本利得，又可以继续的节省38万美元。
As a result, there is substantial more value from the real estate liquidated that is available for sharing with favorite ministries and causes.
那最后来销售不动产的时候呢，这部分的收入都可以完全的来进行施工方面的需要。
The important principle here is this.
这个最重要的原则，从这个安排当中是这样的。
If you hold the real estate and sell it, and then say, I will give cash from the sale, you will be required to pay tax on the gifted portion that you sold.
如果你打算把不动产销售以后，以现金的形态来进行捐赠的时候，那你整个的销售的这部分是作为应税收入的。
In other words, if you give cash after the sale, your deduction will simply offset the gain that you recognize in many cases.
如果你把这部分的现金进行捐赠的时候，是可以从你的收入当中来进行抵扣的。
But if you give the real estate interest first and then sell, your deduction will offset taxes on the real estate you kept because the real estate you gave away was not subject to tax.
但是如果你把这个房产当中的这个股权给捐赠出去的话，你整个的这一部分都是可以从你的税收当中来进行抵扣的。
This same principle applies when it comes to selling a business.
这个原则也同样适用于这种商业利益。
Here we see that somebody selling their business chooses to give interest in that business, stock in that business, to their charitable fund before the business is sold.
也有人是在这个股权或者说是股票在出售之前先行捐赠。
Again, we see three benefits. They create a tax deduction against income they're saving for themselves, against business interests they hold themselves.
所以说，那你销售以后的这部分的收入，跟他自己先进行销售再进行收入，跟上面那个例子一样，也是能够在税收方面看出非常大的一个差距。
Often, the portion of the gifted interest given to charity, when sold, does not generate tax, or it generates much less tax.
嗯，那个捐赠的部分，那个商业利益在进行出售的时候呢，也是在资本利得税方面也是零。
As a result, there's much more available to share with their favorite causes, and it costs them less to make the gift because the tax savings benefited value they retained.
这个例子也是一样的，像销售房产一样，你最后的那个最终的那个利益的时候，相比你先进行出售再捐赠的时候，这里面有比较大的一个税收方面的一个 gap， 是一个税收好处。
I would like to share briefly how someone who has income well in excess of their lifestyle can benefit by reducing the amount of taxation.
那有的人呢，他的这个收入远远超过他的生活的需要，也就是说，生活需求在他的收入当中所占比是比较小的一部分。那么，我们通过这种捐赠的一个组合，实际上能够达到一个非常非常奇妙的一个节税方面的一个结果。
Consider this example, where we see substantial income being earned in a given year, but the family lifestyle is just a fraction of it, as is their cash giving.
那从这个柱状图里面，我们看到，那么有人当年的这个这个收入是蓝色的这部分，远远超出了这个家庭的这个 lifestyle 的需求，包括我们把现金捐赠的这部分也算进去，也都是低于他当年的这个收入的。
You can see here that all of this income that exceeds lifestyle and giving is subject to taxation and is part of how they pay the tax.
那这一部分呢，也是作为一个应税收入来进行缴纳个人所得税的。
If they were to give a non-cash asset interest in that year,
如果在当年度把那个非现金资产的部分作为捐赠给出去的话，
they would have far less of this being subject to taxation in that year.
那这一部分实际上就可以被冲抵掉，就没有这个应税收入，作为一个应税taxable income。
Why would they do this?
他们为什么要这么做呢？
I would suggest one reason is because they say, we are going to give this value away eventually at our death, if not earlier. So why not take advantage of this large income to lower taxation during a year when it well exceeds our lifestyle, and it can count as part of what we're going to give eventually anyway.
就是说，与其说是到最后我们也不得不都给出去，我不如现在就把这部分捐赠出去，来实现就是现实的税收方面的一个好处。
So this is one of the key reasons we find that when people have income well in excess of lifestyle, they look for ways to lower that excess taxation on dollars they're not going to spend for themselves.
那这部分的收入实际上也是你作为维持生活、家庭需要所不需要的这个现金资产，那不如现在在我们生前的时候就通过这样一种安排把它省下来。
May I be so bold as to suggest for stewards of the living God who have great ability to earn income well in excess of their lifestyle, that they should seek to lower their tax liability to an amount fairly attributable to that lifestyle.
我是否可以大胆的讲，那上帝给了我们这些收入，让我们作为一个好的管家，那我们也要在这个税负的规划上面， 来进行合理的规划，可以让我们的生活也能得到很好的供给。
So, a couple more examples and then we finish.
我再举几个例子，我们就可以停到这儿。
This example has to do with a family that would like to give to charity at their death, but also use that to lower taxes during their life.
有这样一个家庭，他们是打算在身故之后的这些资产都捐赠给慈善组织，但是他们也希望能够在生前的时候，在世的时候来降低这个所得税。
Okay, I apologize for that. Let's see here. Do that again. Okay. The family simply says, we have 3 children. Let's treat our favorite charitable organizations as one of the children, as if we have 4 children, and share 1/4, in this example, of our estate with charity.
有这样一个家庭，他有3个孩子，那他把这个慈善捐赠作为第4个孩子，那么这样的话呢，每个人都从这个遗产当中得到1/4。
So what happens is they are now free to look at 1/4 of their estate as an opportunity for lowering their income tax liability during life based on what they plan to do at the end of life.
所以这样一来的话呢，实际上就降低了这个个人所得税的这样的一个金额，来省得到最后再进行规划。
Many people can take advantage of lower taxation during life by dealing with their end-of-life giving while they're living.
实际上，有些人是可以来把这个收入来降得很低，这样来不用到最后来在这个那个遗产方面会有更多的顾虑。
Now, our last example addresses a situation where the estate is so large that it will likely be taxed at the death of the owner.
那实际上作为这个遗产非常庞大的这个所有人，那这个问题就显得更加的明显。
In the United States, this is typically estates that are greater than 12 million for a single person or greater than 24 million for a married couple.
那么现在作为在美国，1200万这个金额以上，可能就会遇到这个遗产税的问题。那夫妇2个人会这个金额会是在2400万以上的部分，就会发生遗产税。
In this example, the owners of the estate, mom and dad, they say, we are planning to share our estate with our children.
那父母双方会对自己的孩子说，我们来跟孩子来规划他们的身后的遗产。
But because the estate may be taxable, we're going to let our children decide how much tax will be paid on their share.
那他们就说，让他们的孩子来决定他们要怎么来交这个遗产税。
They are basically giving each child the right to disclaim whatever portion of their inheritance they desire to their giving fund for their favorite charities.
他们可以让孩子来决定是否要把这部分的遗产来作为日后的捐赠的这个部分的财产。
So let's say child one was going to give 5 million. They're going to receive 5 million from mom and dad. And they say, I'm going to give 1 million of that 5 million to my charitable fund.
那比如说第一个孩子，他从父母那里得到了500万的遗产，他说我要从这当中拿出100万来放到一个捐赠基金里面。
What happens is the gift they make to their charities will not be subject to estate tax.
那他拿出来的这一部分是不作为遗产税的应税金额。
They can choose to make gifts to completely eliminate any estate tax on what they receive, or eliminate some of the estate tax. It is entirely up to the child here.
那他做出这个决定的时候，这一部分的财产就从他所得到的那个部分里面就减除了，就不再作为遗产，完全由孩子自己来决定。
As a result, there are many ways in which one can overcome the burden of estate tax liability through techniques and strategies similar to this particular example.
世界上有很多的技术手段来解决这个遗产税的问题。
These 5 triggers are an interesting example how we can use assets in our estates that typically are not thought of for purposes of making charitable gifts.
那这5个方面呢，都使得我们在进行捐赠规划的时候，通常都不会想到这一部分。实际上，他们是能够达到很好的税收筹划的目的。
In this fashion, we can accomplish what Paul spoke to Timothy about.
通过这种的技术手段，我们就能够实现使徒保罗对提摩太所讲的那番话。
He said to him, "Do good, be rich in good deeds, and share with others."
他说要在好事上富足，甘心施舍，乐意供给人。
And in so doing, you will lay up foundation in the coming age to take hold of the life that is truly life.
你如此行的时候，就是为自己积成美好的根基，预备那永恒的生命，真正的生命。
We live in an era when we need to speak boldly to the younger generation about God.
我们是生活在这样一个世代，我们要大胆的向我们的后代来宣扬我们的信仰。
I find that in giving, we are able to declare his mighty acts.
我们是要向我们的后代来宣扬神的大能。
In this fashion, I've been blessed to be able to share with you some of the manner in which legacy can be enriched with a blessed purpose and for a healthy culture.
通过这样的安排，我深信这种的捐赠不但可以使得接受捐赠的这部分给出去的部分能够更加的充裕和充足，也是一个非常健康的一个筹划的一个模式。
People who enjoy greater giving find they have greater impact with their giving, and it is more broad-reaching.
那些好善乐施的人也能够发现，当他们越多给予的时候，也能够发挥更大的影响力，也能够触及更大的范围。
So, this is where we're at. This is the time in which we can use the tax rules in this country that God has given us to expand what we can do with what He's put into our hands.
那我们就可以来通过上帝所给予我们的，通过税收筹划的手段，再利用这个国家的这个法律框架，能够实现上帝的目的，甚至超越我们所能够在的这块土地。
thank you, Kay, for interpreting. And I'm interested, of course, in responding to any questions that people might have, or to continue in whatever other fashion you suggest.
看大家有什么问题可以问他。
Thank you, Greg and Kay. Thank you. 谢谢方律师和讲员。我们现在进入 Q&A。现在有一个问题，提出来是想知道刚才介绍的，在生前就可以把非现金资产捐赠出去。那捐赠了非现金资产，之后他还有控制权吗？是在他去世之后，这个非现金资产，或者是在他这个非现金资产销售之后、售出之后，再完成捐赠的部分，是不是这样子
？Just one question regarding the control. If the giving for the non-cash assets, if somebody gave those interest away when they're living, would they still be exercise control over those assets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, Kay. Yes, we have had people give the entire company, but they hold on to one share, which has all of the vote. And so charity benefits from the entire company, but the giver continues to control and run the company and determine what salaries will be paid.
好，那这个的解释就是说，答案是 yes， 就是即便你把这个企业这个股权当中的全部100%，他留下一股，需要留下一股，那其余的部分都捐赠出去，而由这个慈善机构或者是接受赠与的这个受赠方来100%的享有这个商业利益，而他呢要留下一股来作为控制权。实际上这个模式是一个 GPLP 的模式，这个在商业上是可以实现的。就是你不拿这个利益了，利益全部都归向慈善了，但是你的控制权100%在你手里面。那么这个模式是可以达到，那所有的收入因为都捐赠了嘛，所以就没有税的问题。是的，但是控制权你还是可以管理企业，因为你持有一股，作为这个管理人。
This is true whether they give 1% or 99%.
对，他说你也可以给1%出去，你也可以给99%出去。
Kay, I would add that NCF has received thousands of these types of gifts over the last 20 years, and we never take control of any asset completely.
他补充的一点就是说 ，NCF 在过去的20年当中，通过这样的模式捐赠过来的不计其数。NCF 从来不会参与企业的管理，那也就是说，就是我刚才那个解释的，那这种情况下，企业主他还是作为这个 General Manager，那作为 NCF 的话呢，他就是作为这个这个权利合伙人，那他会得到全部的商业利益，因为你等于捐赠了嘛，那你可以捐赠1%，也可以捐赠99%。那如果你捐赠1%，你留下99%的话，那你99%的部分是要 subject to tax， 但是你捐出去的就没有这个问题，你就作为管理合伙人，你的收入就非常有限，这个都是可以约定的。
In our next session, Kay, I believe we'll speak more about the particular tools that are used to accomplish these types of gifts.
在下一讲里面，他可能会更加技术化的讲一些的工具，来如何进行这个筹划。
好的，谢谢。有提问，刚才的例子里头的房产的价格是多少？可不可以看一下
？Another question regarding the example you just presented. how exactly the price, the value of the property you just mentioned, which, achieve the significant tax planning purposes.
Right. A qualified appraiser is retained to value the asset interest that's given.
一般是由这个评估师来对你的这个房产的价值来进行评估。But Greg, I understand that the question is asking, because you gave a specific amount of the tax saving, so I guess our viewer is asking for what specific values of the assets that you will calculate as the original price for capital gain purposes.
They usually the giver knows the value better than anybody of what they're giving, but to get the tax benefit, the deduction, they do have to have the asset appraised.
对，作为原值，那作为捐赠的人，他是知道的，他是多少钱购置的，他是知道的。但是他在进行捐赠的时候的那个价值是需要进行评估的，也就是说，他在捐赠的那一刻的那个价值是跟他原始取得的价值之间，实际上是应该有一个增值的。
And we help people through that process to the extent they desire.
我们是通过这样的一个捐赠房产的方式来实现他们的心愿。
Thank you. Another question. 还有提问说，捐赠之后，那可以省多少税？比如说3个小孩和一个企业捐赠出去的话，有3个孩子的情况。
还什么3个孩子再加上一个企业，
这个留言框里头 ，after gifted, how much tax can be saved? For the example, 3 children and 1 organization to be donated. 邓先生可以 unmute， 你那个问题可能不是很清晰。
谢谢。我就说问题是这样。So the example actually just talk about 3 children. And then for 3 portion and 1 portion donated to a charitable organization. And now think about it just like 4 child. But that case, how much tax exactly can be saved for that particular case? Let me say 1 million excess in total.
Right. Yeah, the significance of that is twofold at least. One, you lower estate tax risk significantly by at least 1/4 to 1/3 because of the way the tax brackets work for estate purposes. Secondly, you can make the gift arrangements during life while you're still paying income tax, and you gain benefit with lower income tax. That can be very substantial if people do that.
So if it's the business how balance sheet is 0, in other words, saying the expenses and the income balanced, so during the business time should not have much of the tax can be saved, right?
Right. I would say though that it's difficult under the U.S. system to ever get to 0 taxation because of the way they count income and the percentage deductions that are allowed from year to year for income tax purposes. The main benefit, I would say, is that somebody who is going to give significantly to substantially at the end of life should enjoy minimal income taxation during life. And that means that the tax they pay is well below that attributable to their lifestyle. So if their lifestyle is $200,000, then probably their taxation is that fairly attributable to $100,000 because of the degree to which they can lower it.
邓先生，我来再解释一下，还有包括其他的听众哈，就这个刚才他解释的这个计算方式，实际上按照美国的这个法律系统、这个税法的框架，你要把这个税收降到0是很难的。那么刚才说的就是您问的这个问题，几个孩子再加上一个慈善机构作为受赠人的这个例子，如果是3个孩子，那一人拿1/3，跟你有4个主体，一人拿1/4，实际上在从这个角度上讲，已经降低了这个总量就降下来了，就是从遗产税的角度来讲，它就已经降低了。那第二呢，从你最后给出去呢，还是在生前的时候给出去，对所得税的收入税的影响是最大的。那么现在根据现在的这个税收这个体系呢，实际上你把这个生前的时候你进行了大金额的这个捐赠，那不可能让你全部都抵扣完。你比如说，你如果当年有10万块钱的收入，你捐出去100万，那也不可能让你的税收为0。那我说的100万是指的这个资产价值啊，比如说刚才他说的非现金类的资产，那他从这个税收抵免的这个角度，他是不会让你全部抵完的，它是有一个限度的。那么你又进行了大笔的这个商业利益和股权的捐赠怎么办呢？它可能会用于这种递延的方式，让你逐年的在未来的几年当中不断的抵扣你的所得税。这样的话呢，让你的所得税实际上生前可以降到最低。就像他刚才举的这个例子，你一个20万的每年的这个生活消费，实际上你能够省出来将近就是说你10万块钱可以达到20万块钱的这个收入水平，那中间就是通过税收筹划来达到的，就是说你不用你少交就等于多挣了嘛，就是我听的是这个概念。
谢谢。是speaking in Chinese, apologize, actually great. 我就说是这样，因为像这个情况，您说，比如说一个例子，比如我们很多人华人喜欢投 real estate。real estate 的话，他如果是他没有贷款，他每年有很多这个 rent income 的，这个是比较好的。如果他有贷款，每年的话，他的 balance sheet 是已经 zero 了，就没法省税。或者说的生前的话，这样 donation 的话，可能省税有限，就是他本身有很多 expenses 已经 cover 这个 rent income 了，就没有很多税需要去交，这样是，这是我的 point 这样是。
那你的问题是什么？
我的问题就是说，这个生前去 donate 的话，在这个 case 上，我不知道那个 tax benefit 在什么地方。对，
就是说，当华人持有很多的这个不动产，但这些不动产呢，又是通过贷款来获得的。贷款获得以后呢，他有很多的现金收入来构成他的这个租金的收入，但是这部分的租金收入通过这些费用都给冲抵掉了，是吗？
是的。
那在这种情况下进行捐赠，实际上你认为不一定能够达到很好的一个税收筹划的目的，对吗？
那最后卖的时候 yes 可以，当然是 for course。我就是说在比如说我5年以后再卖这个房子，再处理房子的话，这5年不是非常有效，是这是
有必要。对，这个我同意，这个不用问他了，这个肯定是这样的。因为你通过利用现在税法提供的这样的一些的机会和许可的这种算法，你已经把租金这块都已经冲抵的合理的 deductible 都已经做到了。实际上，仅从捐赠来进行税收筹划，我认为没有那么大的果效，这是我个人的看法。
好，谢谢。我们还有一个问题，请问一下，实现所得税扣税的目的，为了这个目的，一个人每年最大的捐赠金额是多少？所得税的实际的税负是多少呢
？Okay, the question says, for purpose of income tax, what is the maximum amount for a person to give away annually? What's your suggestion? and ultimately what the income bracket, the tax rate would be, given you maximized the your givings in your taxable year.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The government allows someone who's giving cash to give up to 60% of their income and deduct it in that year. If they give more than 60%, they can carry it forward for up to 5 more years to give it away and deduct it. If they're not giving income or not entirely giving income, then they can deduct up to 50% of their adjusted gross income and have the 5-year carryover as well.
OK， 那从这个角度来讲的话呢，如果是以现金的方式去进行捐赠的话，你只能是抵扣当年金额最大的60%，在未来的呢5年之后呢进行递延的抵免。如果是非现金类资产，在你的 AGI 就是调整后的个人的gross income 呢，抵扣50%，在未来的这个5年里面逐年进行抵扣。
As to the brackets, okay, the rates of taxation, they depend. That depends on whether you have joint filing or individual filing, and the level of income, because the bracket rates are like 10 and 15, 22, 28, 33, 35, 37% top bracket. And those brackets go up as your income goes up.
至于说每年你最后实际的所得税的税负，它是按照一个累进的一个税率，取决于你是单独缴税呢，还是作为一个家庭夫妻双方一同来报税。那最后能够达到的这个实际的所得税的税负可能会从10%、15%、22%、28%、32%、35%、37%， whatever， 你的收入越高，那你的这个累进税率就会落在不同的这个档位，这个不同的这个 bracket，
谢谢。
税率吧，不同的税率里面，对。
好 ，clear。那第二个还有问题是问捐赠的目的呢，是主要 focus 在税收筹划还是慈善？如果是慈善的目的，是不是金额太小的话就不能够兼顾上税收筹划呢
？Okay, this question says, what the purpose of giving? Are we focusing on the taxation planning or for charitable purposes? If for the latter, if the giving amount is small enough, would we be able to reach the taxation purposes? Would that be helpful?
Right. Yes. Excellent. My view on that is that we should give to love God and to love others. Way more than giving to save taxes. If I run into somebody who's simply interested in saving taxes, then alarms go off in my head. But most people who love God and love others and want to give do not maximize what they can do, simply because they do not take advantage of the tax rules that we have to give more. So all we do is point people to how much more they could do if they utilize the rules that are there.
那他的观点是，就是我们给的这个目的还是为了爱神爱人的缘故。如果是仅是那我们在这样一个基础上，我们愿意更多的给予， 来进行达到一个税筹的目的，那是更进一步的，就可以用这些工具来进行筹划，而不是说我就是为了税收筹划，反过来我来进行。那个的初衷可能就和我们爱神来关爱别人的这个初衷就是有所背离。实际上这两个目的也是不矛盾的。
Thank you。然后我这里看到的最后一个问题是，家庭财产是以何种方式分配给子女的？是直接的分配，还是父母作为遗产来分配？这两种方式会涉及怎样的税收的后果影响
？Okay, so this question raised in what way normally, typically that estate of a family will distribute to their children. Would that be an outright distribution, or instead it will be distributed as the parent assets? What the tax consequences would be vis-a-vis the two different distributions?
I may need clarification there, Kay. I'm not quite sure I follow the question.
Mm-hmm. So this question is simply asked, typically in what way will the family assets goes to their next generation? Will the parent outright give their assets to their children, like you said, let the children to decide how they dispose those assets, or instead they assume those assets as estate after the estate tax.
Right. Yeah, generally speaking, the parents can design their preference. They can so arrange the distribution of their estate to accomplish their preference for their children. There are many ways to do that. But in the context of that, they can either choose themselves to make the gift to charity at the end of their life or during life, or they could allow the children to make that gift and to decide how to do it. So there are a lot of different answers one could give to that question. I think the important point is that parents have a lot of option as to how they accomplish their objectives.
那这个问题实际上是取决于父母，因为是他们留下来的财产，是他们要达到一个什么样的目的，来对这部分的财产来进行规划。就像那有太多的办法了。就像刚才他可以在生前来对这些财产去进行分配，那也可以到最后一刻钟的时候都给出去，都给慈善机构，或者也都可以给孩子。那作为遗产继承该怎么交税怎么交税，所以这个取决于不同家庭里面父母对财产的态度。
Thank you。好的，我们目前question 就说到这里。如果大家还有新的问题的话，也欢迎微信连接我们华商会的小助手，或者是留下您的电子邮箱地址，大家保持联系。然后我们再次感谢我们今天的讲员，还有我们的翻译的老师。